In this video we're going to look at the Enterprise Report Designer. There's a few different things that we're going to do within this video, the first of which is create a brand new report with some basic customer information in it. We're going to look at setting that report up and putting the columns in the order we want them, etc. The next thing that we're going to do is create a new view in the data dictionary within Enterprise and then create a brand new invoice format from it. So we're going to look at creating an invoice format from scratch. The next thing that we're going to do is create a new view for our dispatch note format or delivery note format, and then we're going to create a new delivery note based on that view, but we're going to actually use an existing delivery note format to create our new format, so we're not going to create that one from scratch. We're also going to look at report triggers, etc. while we're going through this video. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is create a new report from scratch. So to do that, because this is a customer report, I'm going to go to the customer module, and from there I'm going to switch dashboard to the reporting section. So that will then show me all of the reports that already exist within Enterprise. And because we're creating a new report, I want the report writer button, which is the little white icon up there. So when I click the report writer button, I will get the report writer wizard up, and it asks me what type of report I want to create. So we're just going to create a standard report this time. I'm going to click next, and now that we need to select what actual view or table that we want to actually look at for our report. Now, because this report is going to contain some basic customer information, I know that there's already a view or a table in there that's basically got a lot of the information that we want in there. So I'm going to select the customer profile table group, and that then shows us what the actual view is that goes under that. So you can see it's the customer profile form report view that it actually selects. So I'm just going to click next on that, and that will take us to the next part where we then need to select our fields. So I'm just going to select the fields that I want on my report. If there's any that I miss at this stage and I want extra ones, we can drag them on later. But we're going to have currency code on there, we're going to have customer code on there, I want customer email. I'm just going to add all these on as per the report designer document. Okay, so I think I've got all the fields that I want to put on to start with anyway. So I'm going to click next on that. The next stage that we get to is where we can do grouping and sorting on our report. Now on this particular report, because it's just going to be a list of customers' details, I don't want any grouping, so I'm going to leave that section blank, but I would like a sort on the customer code. So I'm just going to highlight customer code and then click the right arrow to move it across. And we can then in here select whether it's ascending or descending, and I'm going to set this to be ascending. Okay, on the next section we can add filters for a report, so if we want to filter by customer code, etc., we could do that. I'm just going to print, I want my report to print for everything, so I'm not going to add any on here. So I'm going to click next, and the next section is for the summary fields that we can have on here. Now this is for things like if we want to do a sum on a certain field, etc. We're not actually going to have any on our report, but just to show you how this works, if I was to move balance over there, so if I do in here, I can say how I want this to do. So if I want it to group by, on the report or the page, etc. So I'm going to actually do it for report. So this will group it by the whole report, and I can say what sort of calculation I want. So I'm going to have a sum. So if I was to do that, it would basically, on the balance field, it would put a sum field right at the bottom of the report, and it would add all the balances up. Okay, I don't want that, so I'm going to right click it and delete selected and get rid of that one off there. Okay, on the next section we then have the different layout schemes in here. I'm going to leave this as standard and as the normal orientation. We can look at changing that later. And the next thing is the type of report we want. Well, we're going to again leave it to form, we'll leave it to the default. Obviously you can change the look of the report in here. Okay, on the next section is where we can choose the default printer option. So if we always want it to go to a printer, or we always want it to go to a file, etc., we can define that in here. And on the next page we will be able to say what the default email and fax options are. Okay, so there's the email page, so I can put the default email message that I want in my report, etc., if I was to email this report, and similarly for fax. Okay, now here's quite an important part, because we actually need to give our report a name, how it's going to appear on the menu. So we're going to call this a customer detail report. So I'm going to enter that in both the title and the description. Okay, and here we can choose whether we want to preview it, modify it, etc. So I'm just going to say modify the report design, and I'm going to finish the wizard. Okay, now my report's on the screen, and I'm going to just maximize this window so we can see it properly. So it's obviously got all the fields that are specified on it. Automatically puts our company information at the top and our logo, etc., as per the system preferences. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do on this report is actually change it to be a different orientation. So if I go over here to the properties, or I can click the F4 button on the keyboard. If I press the F4 button, it brings up the properties, and I can use this little pin button here to pin the properties on so that this box stays on all the time. Now, as default, the property selected in here is the one for the report base. If I click into any of the fields here, it will change to the properties of that particular field or section of the report. So I actually want it to be on the main report. I'm going to go down and find the landscape option here. So we're going to set it to have landscape. So I'm going to change that from false to true. Okay, and you'll immediately see that the edge of our report moves out, so we've got a wider report section to work with now, because it's obviously going to print in landscape. Okay, so the next thing that we can do now is move some of these fields over. For instance, that field doesn't quite fit properly, so I can move that over there, and I can drag this over to wherever I want it. Obviously, as you see there, I can just use these to make the field longer or shorter, and also higher and lower on here, so I can adjust the height of them. So that goes for the same of pretty much any field. If I highlight it, you'll notice as I highlight it, it changes the property over here, so we can see what's in there. And I can change the name of this, double click into it, and I can change what shows there as well. Okay, the other thing I want to do, this box here I know is the page number. You can see there, LBL page number, it changes to when I do that, and I'm just going to drag that also to be over on the right hand side somewhere, so when I print it, my page number prints under my report title. And when it puts these fields on here, it puts them on in alphabetical order, so I'm going to need to change these about a bit, which I'll do in a second. The other thing that I want to do is, if there's any fields here that are going to print numbers, I want to change the format of these to make sure that they're printing as a number, and to also make sure that they're printing as to 2 decimal places. So when I click a field, you'll notice that I've got a little arrow that pops up there. So if I just use the little arrow, and then I can click the format string button here, and that'll bring up a little format box. Now on here at the moment it's formatting as general. I'm going to change it to number, and I'm going to do #.00, which means it's only going to do it to 2 decimal places, and OK that. And then I can go and do that for any other fields that I've got. So credit limit is also going to be a number field, so I'm going to do exactly the same for that. Okay, and OK that. Okay, so next thing that I'm going to do, I'll just show you how to do a couple of fields before I go and do the whole report, is obviously move these things about. So we've got the headers for the fields here in grey, and then we've got the actual field here where it's going to display our value. So let's say that we want the, according to the document, we want balance right over to the right hand side. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to click that one, and then I'm going to hold down the control key and click the lower one, and that will actually highlight 2 fields, and we can do that for a lot of fields. And I'm just going to use my right arrow key here to actually move this over. So I'm going to just use my right arrow to move it right across to the other side, so we're going to have it right over here eventually somewhere. Okay,